crash and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I would like to discuss the 1986 film. See, I'm a professional. I've got notes. The 1986 film Avenging Force, starring Michael Dudikoff and Steve James. This is directed by Sam Furstenberg, same guy did the American Ninjas. I know he did at least the first two American Ninjas, which the second American Ninja is my absolute favorite. And Furstenberg definitely directed that. Now this is the direct sequel, I believe, to Invasion USA. This is a canon film. Invasion USA was a canon film. This was produced by Golan and Globus. You know, if Menachem and Urim were involved, this thing was going to kick ass. And technically it does, but there's something about this movie I just don't like. I love that Steve James and Michael Dudikoff from the American Ninja series have teamed up again. In this, of course, Michael Dudikoff, he plays Matt Hunter, Chuck Norris's character from Invasion USA. And I think Norris was approached about doing the sequel for this here, and for whatever reason, he said no. I know Norris was originally approached as the canon's first choice for being the American Ninja, but he said he didn't love the idea of his face being covered for most of the movie, so he passed on it, which I always thought was kind of strange, because for anybody that's seen the first any of the American Ninjas, Dudikoff's face isn't really covered all that much. So I'm glad that Michael Dudikoff got it, because I grew up absolutely worshiping Dudikoff, but at the same time, had Chuck Norris become the American Ninja, that would have been sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because Chuck Norris is the American Ninja, you know? But anyways, again, this takes place, Matt Hunter, he is friends with a politician by the name of Larry Lawrence, played by Steve James, and they're friends, they're buddies, and there's this group of like right-wing white supremacist types called the Pentangle, and they don't like black people. They have a problem with, of course, the American political system, and they take issue with all sorts of things because they have to be as disagreeable as possible. And so, of course, they wipe out Steve James, as well as wiping out Steve James's family. Now, there's something that I just did not see coming. They're attacked, I believe I think it's Matt's place. He's out there with his sister and Larry's family. And Larry dies here. Steve James passes away in the attack at the farmhouse that I believe belongs to Matt. His wife dies here. They gun her down. And then Matt is attempting to rescue his son, who's like 8 or 9. He's attempting to like pull him out of a second-story window, but Matt is shot down, and you see that it's clearly a dummy. But the kid would get crushed, because the way that the stunt person for Michael Dudikoff fell on top of the dummy for the child who's supposed to play Steve James's son, I mean, that kid would have been crushed. And then the kid's laying on the ground, and somehow the kid's not dead from a 2-story fall. And again, the kid's only like 8. And one of the Pentangle assholes walks up and fucking guns the kid down. I just did not see that coming at all. And that's sort of like the cool part in the movie, I guess, because then Matt's sister's kidnapped, and she's going to be auctioned off to some fucking pervert in the bayou somewhere in the middle of New Orleans. And yeah, they're going to auction his like 10 or 12-year-old sister off at this place. Jesus, Canon Films was one of those production companies that just never shied away from the idea of sex assaults. I mean, the fucking gang rape in the second Death Wish 2 was like a half an hour long. I mean, rape always finds its way into Canon Films for some reason. But yeah, and it's really long and really labored and really awkward. Jesus Christ, there's this big fight in the swamplands with what Matt believes is the remaining members of the Pentangle, but then he discovers that the head guy from the Pentangle, he's still out there, and can't remember the actor's name. He played the main dude in the guy who was Chuck Norris's boss in Delta Force 2. He's the one that allows him to go over and kick the fuck out of Ramon Cota. He plays the main dude from the Pentangle, and there's this really long, labored battle at the end between Dudikoff and him. And it's, fuck, the fight scenes in this are just labored, and it's just, they're awkward, and they're choreographed well enough, but I don't know. They're not really convincing. And I want to say more good things about this movie, but this movie didn't need to be, oh yeah, that's the other thing. This movie's almost 2 hours long. It clocks in at like an hour 45, and that's at least 25 minutes too long. This movie should have got out of our way at around 120, maybe 125, but it just keeps going and going in these protracted fight scene after protracted fight scene, and I do love the end. So when everything's said and done with, Matt puts together that maybe the pentangle isn't finished, and maybe the last arm of the pentangle is somewhere in the federal government. And Matt is starting to suspect that it might be his boss, who he has some words with at the end of the movie. And he says, like, the biggest tough guy line ever. He's like, and I just want you to know something. If it's true and pentangle isn't finished, he's like, I just want you to know one thing. He's like, neither am I. Neither am I. And then he walks off, and it freezes on the hero shot on Dudakov's face. And then the title of the movie comes up, and 8-year-old me just like exploded inside, because my God, that was a cool way to end the movie. Now, I did really like the score. I thought the score was really fun, especially, well, the score is essentially one song that they just kept sort of like reworking over and over again. But I really like that one song. It is used in its entirety. The end credits after Matt's heroic walk-off, once he told his boss essentially to go fuck himself in true 1980s tough guy fashion. You know, it's so badass. And when you're a little kid, this movie's perfect. But then you grow up and you realize the fight scenes are a little long. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for just about 6.5 minutes while I discuss the 1986 film Avenging Force. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. But like always, most importantly, never forget that the world is a way better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.